And hello amp nerds, today we are looking at a kit built Seriatone, however you want to say it. I believe Seriatone is correct pronunciation. A kit built JTM50. Okay, this was definitely not made in Nick's factory. What this video is about is I'm going to show you how to convert this JTM45 non-master volume amp into a 2204 front end, basically, right? So we're going to create a JCM 800 2204 style front end with all of the stock kind of 2204 values. This will become the amp's preamp gain, and this will become the master volume. We'll have the EQ here as per normal and the presence here. So this conversion is really about changing the way that V1 and kind of what happens, after V1 and before that your signal hits V2, how that's all set up. And you can see, if you look carefully here, that in a JTM45 we have a shared cathode. So you see this metal wire here, the bridge between these two pins and the yellow wire, right? So that's where the two triodes that are available in V1, V1A and V1B are sharing the same cathode, which is this cathode resistor here and bypass cap. So in doing this, we're going to put this to a split cathode arrangement, so each triode will have its own cathode resistor. And in a 2204, it's going to be a 2K7 with a 0.68 microfarad bypass on stage 1 and a 10K cold clipper on stage 2. Right, let's get into it. Alright guys, I've done the 2204 front end. I'll take you through it. This build, not as good as I thought it was once I got into it. There was some kind of pretty crazy stuff going on here that I had to kind of rip out and redo, and I haven't finished yet, right? This stuff down here is, not ideal, but I've regrounded a whole bunch of the amp. Well, I'm not using this bus bar anymore. I'll probably take you through the grounding, right, because it has improved the noise floor of this thing dramatically. But let me kind of zoom in on this part of the amplifier, and I'll take you through kind of what I've done here, because it's not, it's a 2204, but with some changes. Well, improvements, shall we call them. High and low jacks here, and rather than in a 2204, 2203, right, you would have your high input here, your low input here, and when you plug into the low input, it bypasses the first gain stage. I haven't done that. Right? The way I've wired this is the same way a plexi front end would be, with two 68K resistors, and you would normally see the resistors here or on the board, right? Here's the old ones from the treble channel that was originally being used. Sometimes you see a 68K here and a 68K here, and they come together and then make their way over here to the grid of the first triode. Now, I've taken a leaf out of John Suhr's book here to some degree and put the two 68K resistors right on the grid. It's always good grid stopper, right? Grid stopper resistors should be as close to the grid as possible. That means running two shielded cables, right? So each of these shielded coax runs one connects to this lug on the low input jack, and the other one connects to this lug. The rest of this is wired just like you would with a low and high input on a 4-hole Marshall. Now, the reason for this is the player, the owner of this amp, kind of wants to use the low input, but he doesn't want it to knock the gain stage out. He just wants a low input that kind of like is, reduces his guitar, the amplitude of the guitar, the pickup. This is a really cool way to do it because you've still got the high input in as you normally would, right? When you come into the low, it knocks, it's basically, it hits the 68k, and it becomes a voltage divider so that the amplitude of your guitar is cut in half. Okay. So we've done that in this case, which means that you don't need to wire the signal back to the jacks, because normally in a 2204, if you have a look at all the layouts that are on the internet, you'll see that you've got to come off the board and back onto the jack sockets to allow the signal to be interrupted when you plug into the low input. So this doesn't happen in this case. High and low use all the gain stages. So let's have a look at it, right? So if you plug into the high input here, you come into the grid, and we've got all of this is, well, forget about that. All of this has stayed stock, right? So it's a 100k plate with a 0.022, and the bypass, the cathode set up on that gain stage is a 2k7 with a 0.68 bypass. So I replaced what was there. The original board had 268k resistors here. I pulled those out, and we've just got our 10k cathode here, right? So this is the cathode for V2B, the second gain stage. So after the first gain stage, our signal is going to come through this coupling cap. Okay, and here we come into the gain pot, and we've got our 470k resistor with a 470 picofarad treble peaker, 1 meg gain pot. We've got a 1 nanofarad bright cap there, and then we have our shielded coax, which runs under the board directly into the grid of V2B. Standard 2204 JCM 800. 100k plate resistor for this, and here's our 10k cathode for V2B. Through the second gain stage, 0.022 coupler again, and this is now connected directly to here. These are the mixer resistors, right? So in the old, it's a JTM50, right? This kit, JTM50. 470k mixer resistors here with 470 picofarad treble peaker over the top, or bright cap, sometimes people call it. So this connects directly from here to here, and then you have to ground this side. Okay. So this 470k resistor here is grounded. This one here is connected directly to the coupling cap that's right next to it. And from here, we're reusing what was already in place. Well, this was already in place, okay, but I just rewired this side of it. On this side of it, we're coming into the grid of V2A, okay, which has an 820 ohm cathode. And then we're into the cathode follower, which drives the tone stack. And so I did have to rework the tone stack to a degree. This was a JTM50 kind of style tone stack. It had a 45 style tone stack. It had a 56k slope resistor, and this amp actually had a 330 picofarad treble cap. So this is now 470 picofarad. This is 33k, so we're kind of standard 50 watt Marshall now. And when we come out of the treble wiper in a 4-hole Marshall, you'll come out of here and you'll come straight into the phase inverter, which the input of the phase inverter, which is right here. So we don't do that. We come out of the treble wiper into the master volume, and I'm using a 220k resistor here. You can link these directly, right? And that's how Marshall did it in the 2204s. They just link directly. Putting a 220k resistor there, and you can use different values. You can use, 180, 150, 270. It just acts as a bit more of a voltage divider on this volume, so you've got kind of a more usable volume. It doesn't just, blow you away as soon as you crack it on. So you kind of get a bit more of a usable taper. but you know, it's not necessary at all. And then from the wiper of this volume, that is where this black wire here runs to the input of the phase inverter. So that is the front end of the amp completely rebuilt. Grounding wise, everything was kind of connected to this bus bar and back to the star ground, which is, you know, on the left hand side of the chassis here. So what I did was I installed some new ground lugs, and we've got the input jack and these cathodes on V1 coming into this ground point here, as well as the gain pot. And there's another ground point that I put in here, and we've got basically the rest of the amp, well, the rest of the preamp, including the presence pot, which is the phase inverter ground. Here we've got the master volume is grounded here, the mid pot is grounded here, the presence pot is grounded here, and I've rerouted the filter, the can cap filter for the phase inverter, and that grounds here now as well. The bias ground, which is just kind of sitting here right on the edge of the picture, is still running over to where the mains is grounded, so that's now separated away from the audio grounds. And yeah, it's, as I said, it's significantly quieter. So look, I'm going to give this a bit of a play. I think we'll just use this camera mic here. I'm using a Suhr MV88 Plus in the workshop here, and I'm just going to crank it up on the bench here, right, and you'll get to kind of hear what this thing is sounding like with its new 2204 front end.
Thank you.